Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Panaganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanma Diramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam sa niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Svatana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Svatana Truptan Kridaiva Trupte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shirarikama Gavayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Shirarikama Gavayara Para Madhura Leela Pratikshana Swa Tanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Pratikshana Swa Tanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Ne Kunja Yuno Rati Kelisidhai Jajali Bhir Jukti Apekshaniya Ne Kunjayo No Rati Kelisidhai Jajali Bhir Jukti Tatrati daksha atibalabhasya Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakchadharitena Samastashra Uktastathabha Gataiva Sadhuve. Kintu prabhoja priya eva tasya Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam. Vande Gora Shri Charanara. Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Yasya prasadam sado. Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Dhyayam tu vamstasya yashastrin sandhyam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dhyayam stubham yasati sandhyam. Vande Guru Shri Dhyayam stubham tasya yasati sandhyam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dhyayam stubham tasya yasati Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sonyavadi Patsatari Shatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Yaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Shri Radha, Nila Madhav Radha, Nila Madhav, Radhe Radhe Radha. Jayo Jagannatha, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Nitai Gora Pramanandi. Hari Hari Haribo. Jayam Vishnu Paramansa Prabhajaka Acharya Stutara Sarasi Shimad Iskon Pratishta Bibiti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priya Jana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhachan Vina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patitu Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Jayananta Koti Vaishnava Hindi Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग जी चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरनावतारी की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय युग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopna Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। देलोशिव श्री राधा नीलमाधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु श्रीमती सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना कर सिंहरे भगवान की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी परमानंदे। All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories to the Assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Pralada Lada Daine. Hiranyakasi Purvavaksha.
Hiranyakasi Purvavaksha.
Silatankanakalaye.
Jaya Silatankanakalaye.
Hito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Hito Nisingha Parato Nisingha.
Yato yato yami tato Narsimha.
Yato yato yami tato Nisingha.
Bahir Narsimho Hrudaye Narsimho. Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapade.
Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringa dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa kesavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare Desha Hare.
Tabakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adabhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu
Tanu Bringa Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Gadisha Hare
Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha
जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव
Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Shri Bhakti Parasar Vignashna Kanishingare Bhagavan ki jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki jai Nitai Gaura Hari Pramanande Hari Hari Bol We need more singers every day. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Satabata Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priya Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Deve Shatabata Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priya Ke Sava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Deve Sattavata Namo Namaha Jai Shamati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai
Namo Namaha Tulasi Kri. Sorry. I didn't know you. Yeah, I'll start over. We'll start watching it.
Hard and fast rules.
Yeah, fine. Oh. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo iya bilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Iya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo iya bilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Iya Vilasi.
ये तुम्हारा शरणलो तारा वंच पूर्ण हो.
जे तुम्हारा शरणला तारा वंचा पुना.
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी.
तुम्हें कृपा करे करा तारे वृंदावनवासी.
मोरा ये विलास विलास कुंजे दियो वास.
मोराए अभिला विलास कुंजे दियावा.
नाया नाहेरी बोसादा युगल रूपरासी.
अमिनाया ने बसारा जुगल रूपरासी.
ये निवेदना दारा सकीरानुगाता कोरो.
निवेदना धारा सखीरयनु गतकार.
सेवाधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी.
यादे करारिये कोरोनी जदासी.
बिना कृष्ण दासे कोई ये न मोरा हो.
बिना कृष्ण दास को ए न मोरा.
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी.
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 नमो नमः श्री तुलसी श्रेयसी. नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी. नमो नमः.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माद्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राण्य शान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पदे.
तानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणसन्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पदे.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माद्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राण्य शान्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे.
तानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणसन्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पदे.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vivai, Priyayai Kesava Satya, Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi, Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya, Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi, Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya, Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi, Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shishi Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestowing your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavi damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays, may I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Kripa sindhubhyai vacha paritanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Ananta Kochi Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaura Pramanand. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam. Oh, sorry. Yeah? Yeah. I got carried away. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpanam Majanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purna Mrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Etadrushi Taba Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamiya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam vajagarishya kamaye, mama janmani janmanishari, bhavata bhakti rahaitu kitvayi, oinanda tanuja kinkaram, patitam mam visame, bhavam buddho, kripaya tava pada pankaja, stita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya, nayanam galora shrudharaya, Vadanam gate gada ruddhaya gira pulakairinchitam vapukada tavanam agrahane bhavishyati juga itam nimishena chakshusha pravrusa itam sunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me asli shava padaratam pinastumam adarshanan marmahatam karotuva Jata tathava vidadatu lampato mat pranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivrishesha Sunyavadi Patsyatadeshatarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of reputed birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, And thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakchurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jota Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Vitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunavadi Pasatyadi Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shiva Shavana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjo Jalaprema Dhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Apusiddhanta Dvantaharine Namagore Kishoraya Shakshavairagya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Bhumeswam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Jagannataya Te Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gurutuse Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataro Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratopangur Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarvasya Parambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumadha Shimad Ratnagara Simasana Stito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Visevamana Smarami Shiman Rasarasaram Devam Shivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinata Stristuna Tapta Kanchana Gurangira Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are continuing today more specifically on the unique qualities of Lord Krishna as part of our Christmas and New Year's seminars, which will end on in the 2nd of January. So yesterday I gave you some homework to do, that is to read the 9th chapter, 5th verse to the 9th chapter, 10th verse, 10th or 11th verse. 11th verse, yeah. So, the 5th verse says, Nachamatstani bhutani pasyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brinacha bhuta sto mamatma bhutak bhavanaha. And Krishna says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all living entities. And although I am everywhere, I am not part of the cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So already in this verse, we have several points that are unique qualities of Krishna. And that is that although he pervades the entire material universe in the form of Mahavishnu, and that's point one. Number two, the entire universe is situated within him, or he's the substratum of the entire universe. So that means that the Brahma Jyoti is the basis of the spiritual world and the material world. That's the second unique quality. Number three, he also contains everything in his form as Virat Rupa, or the universal form of the Lord, which is a temporary form of the Lord in the material world. And so that's the third point. It's unique about Krishna. Now, fourth point is, although he's present in every atom of the universe and in the heart of every living being as Paramatma, although he is the substratum or the basis of the spiritual and material world as Brahma Jyoti, and although he contains the entire material creation in his gigantic universal form as Virat Rupa, still he is not inside or does not touch the material world. When he does come as an avatar in his original form, he comes with his spiritual energy, so he doesn't actually, again, touch the material world. When he impregnates the jivas into the material world, he does it by his glance. He doesn't actually enter into the material world. In the same way that if you go to like for example, a night blooming jasmine tree, like we have one like that at our temple in Hawaii. At nighttime, you can smell the wonderful fragrance of the night blooming jasmine tree. But you don't touch it, and it doesn't touch you. But the wonderful aroma of it is coming because of the wind, and you can smell it. So in the same way, Krishna, he doesn't touch the material nature. He doesn't enter into it in the sense of being covered by it. But yet, he impregnates jivas, or living entities like us, into it. And why? Because we have developed envy of the Lord, and therefore we can't stay in the material world, in the spiritual world. So he creates a material world in which we can enviously try and emulate him, or try and become little gods by dominating and enjoying some small parts of the material nature. But that is not the real purpose of the material nature. The real purpose of material nature is to give us a second chance to rectify our enviousness of the Lord and our desire to dominate and exploit the material nature, and purify those desires and replacing those desires with the desire to be always subordinate to the Lord, always surrendered to the Lord, always following the instructions of the Lord as he gives them in the Bhagavad Gita, and then we can go back to Godhead. So now that's a fourth unique quality of the Lord. And then he says, although I'm the maintainer of all living entities, so that's the verse, Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kama, and that's another unique quality. All living entities are maintained by Krishna. He is supplying food to everyone, and not just human beings, but also to the aquatics, also to the plants, also to the reptiles and the bugs, also to the birds, also to all the mammals, and also to all the human beings, and also to all the devatas. So this is a unique quality of Krishna no one can emulate. He is supplying food to everyone. And he says, Ishivaishamidam sarvam jatkinja jagatyam jagat tena taktena punjitaha magridha kasrasuddanam. He says that Krishna is perfect and complete. And besides that, he is the supreme controller of everything, controller and owner. And he has set aside for every living entity their minimum needs, accepting the minimum needs and using everything besides that, or in surplus of that, in the service of God. One is never affected by the laws of karma. So this is another unique quality of Krishna. He is supplying everyone with food. That's why elephants that eat about 200 to 400 pounds of biomass or plants in a day, and there's thousands of them in Africa as well as in Southeast Asia. Who's supplying all that food? If you had an elephant, you probably would go bankrupt trying to feed it, right? They eat a huge amount of food, of plant matter. But Krishna is feeding all of them, as well as all the insects, as well as all the lions and the tigers and the giraffes, and everything is being fed by the Lord. So that's a unique quality. He is the maintainer of all living entities, and although Krishna says, I am everywhere, I am not part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of the creation. So he never enters into the material world, which is made up of three modes of material nature. So when he does come into the material world, it's with his spiritual energy, and he's not subject to the three modes of material nature that are supernatural forces that control the activities of all the living entities, meaning you, me, and everybody, and including the animals and all those different species. We're all being controlled, but yet, out of our foolishness and ignorance, we think we are a controller. But did you control being born? No. Do you control your body? Not really. Do you control getting old? No. Do you control getting sick? No. Do you control dying? No. So we are not controllers. We are always being controlled by the laws of material nature, and especially the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, so now in the purport, it says, the Lord says that everything is resting on him. Matstani sarvabhutani. This should not be misunderstood. Now, 2 days homework, previous 2 days homework was to study Plato's allegory of the cave, and then yesterday was to also study Plato's allegory of the cave. We compared it to the explanation of the upside down banyan tree in the material world. Okay, everybody knows what that is now. So then we talked about Pythagoras yesterday, who was very close to being a devotee, and he was unique amongst the great thinkers of ancient Greece. Now, Prabhupada is going to mention another famous personality in Greek mythology, and that is Atlas. And he says, the Lord says that everything is resting on him. Matstani sarvabhutani. This should not be misunderstood. The Lord is not directly concerned with the maintenance and sustenance of this material manifestation. Sometimes, he does that through the devatas, who are his supply agents. And they get the supplies from the Lord, and then they give them out to the living entities. Sometimes we see a picture of Atlas holding the globe on his shoulders. He seems to be very tired, holding this great earthly planet. So look up Atlas, A-L-T-A-S, and you'll see a picture of him with the earth on his neck, and his head is down, and it looks like he's carrying the earth and the sky on his shoulders. All right. Now, you see how, like I said, and the reason we studied Plato's allegory of the cave, and then Pythagoras, and now we're hearing about Atlas. They all got all their knowledge from the Vedas and from Bharat, but because they didn't accept proper gurus, they only have partial understanding or incomplete understanding of these concepts. So Krishna is not like Atlas, struggling to hold up the heavens and the earth. So do you see a picture of him? Yeah. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, show yeah. So what is the truth? The truth is, as Krishna says here, Prabhupada says, sometimes we see a picture of Atlas holding the globe on his shoulders. He seems to be very tired, holding this great earthly planet. Such an image should not be entertained in connection with Krishna's upholding this created universe. He says that although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. The planetary systems are floating in space, and this space is the energy of the Supreme Lord. But he is different from space. So what does it mean that space is the energy of the Lord? Bhumir apo nalo vayu kam mano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame binapaktirastata. That is the Bhagavad Gita, and 7th chapter, what is it? Huh?
7-5.
Huh?
7-4.
Yes, 7-4. So it means, it says that Krishna has these 8 fundamental, let's say, forces or energies that emanate from him. Bhumir, Alpo, Nalo, Vayu. This is earth, water, fire, air, and then ether. Ether is this subtle form of space. And here it's saying that he says that although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. So, resting on what? Resting on this ether. And the planets which are floating in the universe are being kept in their orbits, and their orbits are perfect orbits, just like the Earth orbiting around the sun, and then the different planets in the galaxy. Their orbits are all maintained perfectly, and this is because Krishna's energy is maintaining them, and his energy in the form of Sheshanaga, as well as the demigods. Like, for example, Surya is a demigod. Like us, he's a jiva, but he's become highly, let's say, elevated spiritually. He's not liberated from the material world yet, but he has very great responsibilities. He controls the sun and the trajectory of the sun from east to west every day. So, so the sun has an orbit also, a perfect orbit. Not only we're orbiting around the sun, but the sun is also orbiting around a universal axis in the universe. So all these movements and all these energies are coming originally from Krishna through the Devatas and also Sheshanaga. Sheshanaga has an infinite number of heads, and they are holding up, or the energy of gravity is actually Sheshanaga. It's something what we'll hear about later on. Okay, so it says, he says that although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. Now, this is a quality that no one can emulate. When it says he's aloof, that means that although all this is happening because of his expansion of energies, now we are, as a jiva, or an individual soul, we're an energy of the Lord. And the demigods are also energies of the Lord. But because the Lord is simultaneously one and inconceivably different, he is an individual and we are individuals, but our individuality is minute and his individuality is infinite. And that can never change. So when we accept that we're all subordinate to the Lord with a humble attitude, then we begin to learn this knowledge that we're discussing now. A person who is not humble and surrendered to the Lord and does not have a bona fide spiritual master, they will never understand any of this. And because of that, they unnecessarily suffer in the continual cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. But everyone is overwhelmed by the illusion that they are a controller. We are all prakriti, or controlled by the Lord. Our purpose is to give pleasure to the Lord, but in a state of illusion, we want to be the Purusha and not Krishna, and we want to be the enjoyer and the dominator. And because of that, we become subject to the laws of nature, we become subject to the three modes of material nature, we become subject to time, we become subject to birth, old age, disease, and death. All these things are unnecessary. We have an eternal soul, but due to our enviousness of God and our desire to eliminate God in our life and simply live eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals, we suffer. Suffering is not necessary. Suffering is an artificial imposition on us. Why? Because we're violating Krishna's instructions. Just like if your child violates everything you say, well, that child is going to suffer in some way or other. Eventually, you might even throw the child out of your house. It happens a lot nowadays, where children are thrown out of the house because they refuse to be submissive to their parents. So they put them in a boarding school, or they just throw them out. It happens. That's why if you go downtown, you'll see there's a lot of homeless kids, teenagers that have been thrown out of the house or left voluntarily because they didn't want to follow their parents' instructions. You see it also in India. It's everywhere. All right, so it says here, he is aloof. The planetary systems are floating in space, and this space is the energy of the Supreme Lord. But he is different from space. He is differently situated. Therefore, the Lord says, although they are situated on my inconceivable energy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of the Lord. Now, a person who doesn't accept that the Lord has this inconceivable opulences, and it's mystical also, like the modern scientists and modern philosophers, they will never be free from the cycle of birth and death. They will always continue. And you can see all these big guys, Einstein and all the big famous people, they've all died. They're all looking for the elixir of immortality. We've spoken about that before, but they never find it. They always claim we're gonna achieve it, in another 20 or 30 years. Death will be optional. That's a bunch of nonsense. See? Because every one of us are being controlled by the laws of material nature that were established by Krishna. So Krishna is instructing us in two ways. Number one, by giving us Bhagavad Gita, this one book that has all Vedic knowledge in it. And you don't even have to read any other scriptures. You just read Bhagavad Gita and you'll get all knowledge, or all Vedic knowledge. Of course, people ignore Bhagavad Gita. They want to be Microsoft certified or JavaScript certified, whatever, nowadays, and they waste their time and their whole life eating, sleeping, and mating. Start it all over again, and not even sure they're going to have a human body in the next life. But here it says that the Lord has inconceivable energies. In other words, it's beyond our ability to measure how great the Lord's energies are. And we can see that. There are universal things that are happening, like earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes and so forth. We have no control of them. The United States has the strongest army, or so-called strongest army in the world, but when a hurricane comes, like the hurricane that came in New Orleans, they're helpless. Or like the snow that just came in like Buffalo and northern parts of the United States. They were helpless. They couldn't stop it. So that is just one small example of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Eventually, there's going to be pralaya, winding up of the whole universe, where everything will be deconstructed, and nobody will be able to stop it. And so, therefore, we have to understand what is our actual position. So, Krishna says, my inconceivable energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of the Lord. In the Nirukti Vedic dictionary, it is said, Yujyate nena durgatesu karyesu. The Supreme Lord is performing inconceivably wonderful pastimes, displaying his energy. His person is full of different potent energies, and his determination is itself actual fact. Now, that's a big statement. His determination is itself actual fact means whatever he thinks and wants to do, it happens automatically. But when we think to do something, it doesn't happen automatically. We have to do a lot of work. Like, let's say you have an idea to start a new company, a startup, and what do? Well, it just doesn't happen automatically. You have to get some capital. You have to hire some people. You have to put your strategy of how you're going to produce a product or an app or this or that. And it could take years before you're successful. Krishna doesn't have to do that. What does he do? The Supreme Lord is performing inconceivably wonderful pastimes, displaying his energy. He says that his person is full of different potent energies, and his determination is itself actual fact, meaning whenever he thinks to do something, it immediately happens. It's not like us, where you have to go through a whole long process, sometimes years of effort, to bring about some invention we have or an idea we have and make it actuated. No. just by thinking of it, it happens perfectly. That's how powerful Krishna is. So his determination is itself actual fact. This is completely different than any human being. We don't have this ability. So this is a unique quality of Krishna. In this way, the personality of Godhead is to be understood. We may think of doing something, but there are so many impediments, or meaning obstacles, and sometimes it is not possible to do as we like. But when Krishna wants to do something, simply by his willing, everything is performed so perfectly that one cannot imagine how it is being done. The Lord explains this fact, although he is the maintainer and sustainer of the entire material manifestation, he does not touch this material manifestation. Simply by his supreme will, everything is created, everything is sustained, everything is maintained, and everything is annihilated. There is no difference between his mind and himself, as there is a difference between ourselves and our present material mind, because he is absolute spirit. Simultaneously, the Lord is present in everything, yet the common man cannot understand how he is also present personally. He is different from this material manifestation, yet everything is resting on him. This is explained here as Yogam Aishwaram, or the mystic power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there are a lot of points here. All of them are unique qualities of the Lord. For example, there's no difference between his mind and himself, as there is a difference between ourselves and our present material mind. Now, what does this mean? Our mind is a material thing. When Krishna says, Bhumir apo nalo vayu kamano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame bina pakritirastata. He says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are my inferior material, spiritual energies. They're spiritual. Why? Because as energies, they are eternal. Now, what those energies produce in the form of bodies and mountains and lakes and all those things are temporary. But the energy that goes into making them, they're eternal. And that energy is called prakriti. Now, what does prakriti mean in Sanskrit? There's a large description of this in a lecture Prabhupada gives on Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, 1st and 2nd verse. And he spoke at February 25th, 1975 in Miami. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read the part where he talks about Prakriti. And he says, he was asked a question by two persons who were somewhat like intellectuals. And they said, what are you going to do? The world is full of problems today. What does your Hare Krishna movement profess or teach to eliminate all these problems? What is your philosophy? Does it say anything about how you can get rid of suffering? Because there's a lot of suffering and it's getting worse. So that was a good question. And Prabhupada said, yes. So he said, so Prakriti, nature, we are living entities, especially the human being. They are Purusha. So Prakriti means what is enjoyed, and Purusha means the enjoyer, right? These are two Sanskrit words. But actually, we are not enjoyer. We are false enjoyer. He's saying we're acting as if we're Purusha, but we're not Purusha. We're actually Prakriti. So Prakriti is considered female, and Purusha is considered male. Now, we can see that this designation of male-female is fluid, is not eternal. But the real fact is that we're all Prakriti, even if you have a man's body or if you have a woman's body. Okay, so now what does he say? We are false enjoyer. We are not enjoyer in this sense. Suppose you are Americans. You have developed this tract of land known as America very nicely, but you cannot enjoy. You are thinking that you are enjoying, but you cannot enjoy. After some time, you'll be kicked out. Get out. Then how you are enjoying? In other words, after some time, you're going to die. You're going to get old, sick, and die. So how can you say you're enjoying? Because everything you produce, everything that you own, everything that you identify with, you're going to lose it all when you die. And you don't know what's going to happen to you after you die. You hope there's nothing after death, but that's not a fact. So you see how ignorant people are today and how they waste their time, because there are two purposes Krishna has for the material world. First purpose is to give those people who revolted against him in the spiritual world a place where they can pretend to be controllers and enjoyers, but ultimately they're going to fail. And when they fail, very, like, say, drastically, like, for example, do you know there's a whole bunch of companies in America that in the last couple of months have lost up to 95% of their net worth in a matter of a couple of weeks or a month or two. Now, it's not just the Bitcoin, not just that. There are a whole bunch of other companies that have lost their valuation significantly, up to 95%. If you want, you can ask me, I'll send you a list of them. I hope you don't have any stocks in any of them. So, I mean, look, one example is Elon Musk, and his Tesla business. He's lost 72% of its evaluation in a matter of one and a half months. 72%. And there's a whole bunch of companies like that. So you see, there's no guarantee in the material world of success, but there is a guarantee of failure. Even the most richest person is going to be a failure in the sense of losing everything they accumulated because they die, right? So here it says, he says, so Prakriti, nature, and we are living entities, especially the human being, they are trying to be Purusha. But actually, we are not Purusha or enjoyer. We are false Purusha or false enjoyer. We are not enjoyer in this sense. Suppose you are Americans. You have developed this tract of land known as America very nicely. But you cannot enjoy. You are thinking that you are enjoying, but you cannot enjoy. After some time, you'll be kicked out. Get out. Yamaraj will come and say, you're done. You're not going to have this body anymore, and I'm taking you to Narak, where you belong, to train you for your next body. And the training is very severe, depending on how ignorant you were during this lifetime. Okay. So after some time, you will be kicked out. Get out. Then how you are enjoyer? You may think that at least for 50 years or 100 years, I am enjoying. So you can say that you can enjoy, so-called enjoy. But you cannot be permanent enjoyer. That is not possible. Therefore, this land, American land, was there before you came from Europe, your forefathers. And your forefathers have left. They're all dead. George Washington, he left. Many others who developed this land of America, they have left. Here or there, in France, there was Napoleon Bonaparte. In Germany, there was the Kaiser. And in other countries, there was, like our country, he said, there was Gandhi. or somebody else. So they have come here, they falsely declare being an enjoyer, but actually they are not enjoyer, they're kicked out. They come to enjoy the nature, but nature kicks them out. This is the fact. So then, who is the enjoyer? The real enjoyer, the real Purusha, is Krishna. He is controlling the Prakriti and controlling you. We can very easily understand two things are there, matter and living entities, but none of them are independent. There is a controller. That controller, the supreme controller, is God, Krishna. Therefore, he is the real enjoyer, or real Purusha. And it is declared in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatfamam santim richati. Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, 29th verse. Krishna says, Bhoktaram, I am the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices, or yagyas. And Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram. I am Maheshwaram. I am the controller and owner of everything in the universe. And then, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, and I'm the closest person to every living entity as Paramatma, and the best friend. And then, Yajyadva Santim Richati, someone who knows these three things will attain real Shanti, real peace. Right. So that's 5th chapter, 29th verse. Here we have taken the position of Purusha falsely. We are trying to exploit the material nature for a few days, and in due course of time, we will be asked by Prakriti, the natural laws of nature, now, sir, you have enjoyed me so much, now you get out. Then how? We are Purusha. Purusha means enjoyer. If the Purusha becomes under the ruling of Prakriti, then how he is Purusha? He is not Purusha. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as Prakriti, not Purusha. Aparayam itastvanyam Prakriti vidime param. So that's the verse that we're reading now. It's the 5th verse of the 9th chapter. And it says, Aparayam, he says, Krishna says that this material nature, matter, is dull matter. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, or sky. These are called gross material elements, the Mahabhutas. So they are Prakriti. Bina Prakriti me astada, Krishna says, that these material elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and ego, 8, they are material. Mind is also material. There is such a thing as a spiritual mind, but right now we have a material mind. Our spiritual mind is covered by the body. But whatever is within our experience, that is material. So that is claimed as Krishna's Prakriti, or energy. But they are separated energy. Krishna says, next verse, Aparayam. Apara means inferior. This is inferior nature. Itastu vidime prakritim param. Beyond this is another prakriti, or nature, that is para prakriti, or superior. What is this para prakriti? Now, jiva bhutam mahabaho yaryadam dayate jagat. This is 7th chapter, 5th verse. So that jiva bhuta, the living entity, is also prakriti, but superior prakriti. In which way? It is superior because the living entities are trying to exploit the dull material energy or entity. So both of them are prakritis, but one is superior and one is inferior. So we are not part of the apara prakriti, or inferior spiritual energy. We are part of the para prakriti, the superior spiritual energy, but we're still prakriti. We are the enjoyed. We are not the enjoyer. So as long as we have the tendency to try and be a false enjoyer, we're subject to the laws of karma. So we see this. Why did I tell you to look up who is Harvey Weinstein? So you looked him up, right? Tell us a little bit about him, not all the disgusting stuff, but say a few things about him. Wait a minute. Give her This is the equal opportunity microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Now he was a very famous person, right? He was a big movie maker. You know?
No, I haven't. I mean, he's one of famous producers for Lord of the Rings, Kill Bill, some of the very popular Hollywood movies. He had a glorious life.
Very rich.
That very glorious life.
Very rich.
Very rich. Until the things have opened up.
You know, some of his best friends were President Clinton and his wife. There's many pictures of him with them. He would invite them to his movie, debut, and they would invite him to the presidential palace, right, the White House. Go ahead.
I mean, as Maharaj said, he has many big contacts. Lot of people became famous because of his movies, mostly the heroines. Whereas the I don't know if that's the right word, the filthy, the thought process behind the way he built up his industry is so nasty. Now he is suffering 26 years in New York. He's in jail right now at the age of 70 plus. And he has one more state, California, which also has addressed, and they don't know how many years he's going to serve. So once he finishes the service, serving at New York
jail. He's going to
jail.
die in jail, for sure.
Yeah.
He'll never get out of jail.
But the women who went through such pain and insult and
exploitation.
Yeah, that's the right word, exploitation. You can see the happiness, not happiness. I think it's somewhere.
It's called vengeance or justice.
Justice, yeah.
They got justice. They all came forward and said how he very, very in a nasty way controlled them and took advantage of them and defiled them. All these women, and many of them are famous, right? And they're big movie stars. But they went through his company, and they were defiled by him in order to advance in their career. So he got away with it for many years, and now he's crushed. And he's lost a lot of his money, and he's in jail, and he's not going to get out of jail until he dies. So this is what happens when we try to be Purusha. Now he's a real bad one, right? We are little ones compared to him, but we have the same disease. We're trying to exploit the material nature for our own selfish purposes, and we're getting caught by the laws of nature. Or the laws of karma, and when it comes down on us, it's devastating. Yeah, go ahead.
One more point to add, Maharaj. A lot of Ivy College students were very happy to join his organization when they got selected, and a couple of women were speaking in that it was so unfortunate that we got selected after realizing what we had to go through. And they were, at that time, who felt very lucky, and
they thought they had reached the
final goal of their
life,
whatever
but actually
dreams.
It turned out to be the complete opposite.
Yeah, and he turned out to be a demon.
He was a big demon, and he's in jail. That's good. Okay, so we see all these big guys. It's not only Harvey Weinstein. There's also many others have been caught in the last 5-6 years for all the horrible things they did to women. And they've lost their money, or they're in jail, or their reputation has been ruined. They all seem to be wonderful people, very successful people. They turned out to be rascals, demons. See? So this is what happens. Anything that's good about a person is destroyed as soon as they want to exploit material nature for their own selfish purposes. And look at what's happening to Putin right now. Look what's happening to Elon Musk right now. Look what happened to the king of Iran. So many of these big people are being destroyed. Look what happened to Napoleon, right? Look what happened to all these big people that get ruined because of their desire to dominate and exploit and be the alpha Purusha, right? Now, let's hear what else Prabhupada says about this, because it's very interesting. He says, so nobody is actually male except Krishna. We are all female. We are dressed like male, and somebody has dressed like female, but all of us, we are female, Prakriti, to be enjoyed. The enjoyer is Krishna. That we do not know. Here, the so-called woman is also Purusha, because she is also trying to enjoy. So it's not just the men that want to be Purusha, the women want to be Purusha today also. Say, anyone who is trying to enjoy, he is called the Purusha. And the subject matter or object which is enjoyed, that is called Prakriti. So in the material world, we are trying to exploit one another, either in the dress of a male or in the dress of female, because this body is a dress. So originally, we are all female, but falsely, we are trying to enjoy one another or this material world. Therefore, they are sometimes called Purushas. So this question is raised by Arjuna from his guru, Krishna, because the guru is accepted to acquire, is accepted in order to get knowledge. Tad vigyanartam sagurum eva abhigachet. The Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12. One must approach a guru, a bona fide guru, not a kangaroo, but a guru. Because the guru, as Bhagavat says, tatvidi paripratena paripasnena sevaya upadekshami te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarsinaha, 4th chapter, 34th verse, where one must approach the guru with pranipat, paripasnena, and sevaya, with humility and surrender, and ask significant questions, and third, offer seva. Then a auspicious atmosphere is created for question and answer. If you just come to a guru and challenge him and say, oh, I don't see God, I don't believe in him, and I don't even think you're a guru, he's not going to say anything. He'll remain silent. But if you come with pranipat, with submissiveness, and ask real substantive questions, why am I suffering? Why is there so much evil in the world? And Guru can answer all these questions and help you understand how you can be free of this unnecessary suffering. Suffering is unnecessary because you have an eternal soul. But as long as you identify with the body and you want to be Purusha, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer and you're going to be a failure in life. Right? So then it says, the modern civilization is suffering from this defect, that they are not inquisitive about Brahman, or spiritual reality. Just like cats and dogs, they are interested with this body and the bodily necessities of life. They do not know beyond that. That is the defect of modern society. The other day, in Caracas, that's in Venezuela, I think, some psychiatrists came. Their question was that the problems of the world are increasing. So what is your prescription to solve these problems? What is your Hare Krishna movement or ISKCON doing to solve these problems? And Prabhupada said, so the problem is very easy to be solved. I gave the example that this body is there. You have a body, I have a body. And there is something which is moving the body. It's called the living force. So that living force is the driver of the body. And the body is also described in the Bhagavad Gita as a machine. Actually, it is a machine. And the word for machine in Sanskrit is yantra. Ishwara sarvabhutanam. Heard they say, Rijuna Tistati, Brahmayan Sarvabhutani, Yantra Rudrani Mayaya. Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 61st verse. Yantra means machine. So we are seated on this machine. What is the machine? The material body. This is knowledge. The person who's seated in his car on a machine, nobody knows. There are so many advancement of knowledge department. But where is the department to understand that the living force which is driving this machine, what is that living force? So what he's saying is, you know that you put gasoline in your car, and then it goes in the carburetor, and your spark plugs give a spark, and it explodes. And that explosion of the gasoline, which is highly explosive, right, that makes the pistons move, and the pistons eventually make your wheels move, and you accelerate, right? Now, what is, you're not taking gasoline in your body to get energy, right? So what is giving you that energy? Now, most people go, well, it's food, especially meat. No, that's not giving you energy. The energy is coming from your heart. And what's in your heart? Well, there's two major things in the heart. There's Krishna as Paramatma, and there's you, Jivatma. The energy is coming from Paramatma through the Jivatma, and then when the blood comes back to the heart, it is rejuvenated. If you look at the trajectory of the blood, when it comes out of the heart, or when it goes through the heart. See, the heart's a pump, so it's pumping out blood, and it's going through your whole body, and then coming back again to the heart, right? So something is happening when it comes back. In fact, sometimes they show that the blood that's coming back is blue, and the blood that leaves the heart is red again. Now, it's not exactly true, but it is a way to show that something has been distributed by the blood as it went through all the arteries, veins, and capillaries, and then comes back again to the heart and gets rejuvenated, right? So what is it that's rejuvenating? Well, the scientists were like, well, it's oxygen. And it's not really oxygen. There's something more important than that. That is the spiritual energy coming from the soul. The super soul is Paramatma, and you are the individual minute soul as Jivatma. The energy is coming from the soul, and it's spiritual energy. And when the heart stops pumping and the blood does not come back to the heart, you die, right? Because it's not being rejuvenated, and you stop breathing. So this is a mysterious thing. The scientists do accept that the energy is coming from the heart, but they don't know what's in the heart that's producing that energy. They think it's food, or they think it's oxygen, or this thing or that thing, right? Okay, so he says, look, the body is functioning like the machine. He says, where is the department to understand that the living force which is driving this machine, what is that living force? He's saying there's no school teaching what is the living force in the body. Yeah, they'll say it's food, or they'll say it's oxygen, or this thing or that thing, but that's not fact. So, therefore, this education, this material education that kids are getting, and right up to the PhD, has no value. They do not know what is education. Education means to inquire about the living force which is moving this body. This is education. What they're learning is not education, that we have manufactured a nice car or a nice machine. This is called craftsmanship. That is not education. Just like one electrician, he knows how to join two wires and bring current. In India, it is called mistri, right? It's called mystery. Mystery means worker, because he knows that technical art, how to bring electric current. That does not mean he's educated. Education is a different thing. The worker, they're just working so many processes of putting wires together or this or that. That does not mean they're educated. In Sanskrit, what is it called? It's craftsmanship. He knows the art, how to do it. So at the present moment, the technical education is there. Formerly, in previous time, this technical education was entrusted to the demons. Formerly, they were also manufacturing big airplanes. Huh? You hear about it if you read, like, for example, Ravana. He had a big airplane, right? He stole it from his what was his name? Anyway, he stole it, but it was produced by demons, right? So he says this technical education was entrusted to the demons, not by the great saintly persons. They, the saintly persons, were being, in other words, the demons were producing all these big constructs like fantastic airplanes and other things. But generally, when there is a question of manufacturing, that was being done by the demons. So actually, at the present moment, although we are manufacturing so many nice things for the comforts of the body, but that does not mean it is education. Education means Brahma Vidya, to understand what is that living force within this body that is making it work. What is this? What is his position, his constitutional position, how it is working, where from it has come. So many things. This is called Brahma Jigyasa, to inquire about the soul. That is education. So that education is lacking. Therefore, there are so many problems at the present moment. Yeah, with all the advancement of science, with all the advancement of philosophy over the last 2,000 or 3,000 years on this planet, there has not been any real advancement. Spiritually, it has only been material advancement, which has produced horrible results. If you look, just in the last century, there were two major wars. Both of those wars were completely devastating to hundreds and millions of people. And why were they so devastating? It was because of industrial production of weapons, massive weapons. Now we're seeing it again with this Ukraine war. Massive weapons are being used to kill large numbers of people, right? This is the best development of modern science, and it's not good. It's bad. And along with that development, there is a lot of ecological or environmental contamination going on. You can see pictures of Bakhmut, which is a town in Ukraine. All the forests have been destroyed completely by the bombs. You can see the stumps of the trees. They've all been burned down in that city and in its surroundings. They're bombing that place to smithereens right now, and it's not stopping. It's increasing. See? So all this is because people are not educated properly. That is inquired here. Chetram chetragyam. This body is chetra, the field of activities, but the field worker is different. Therefore, this is the inquiry. Chetram chetragyam. We are taking care of this chetra, the body, but we do not take care of the occupier of the body or the owner of the body, the soul. There are two chetragya, knowers of the body. You will find in this verse two living entities. One is called soul and the other is called super soul, or jiva and paramatma. In this body there are two souls. One is the occupier soul and the other is the proprietor soul. Okay, so I just wanted to give that understanding of what is Purusha and what is Prakriti. So if we understand that I am not this body, I'm actually the soul that's animating the body with energy and life. And as soon as the soul leaves the body is dead matter. In fact, it's always been dead matter, but it only looks alive because it has a connection to Paramatma and Jivatma. Take away Paramatma and Jivatma, it's dead matter again. This is not understood and it's not being taught anywhere. Therefore, people are unnecessarily suffering today because of ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of suffering. Okay, so we're going to continue this tomorrow. We only read one purport. We have at least 8 or 9 more. So are there any questions about what we discussed today?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, so we just listened how Prabhupada explained that actually Jiva is Prakriti and not Purusha. But sometimes in the purports, the living entities are described as minute Purushas. Yeah. So how do we understand?
Well, they are the false Purushas. It's not their position. They're actually Prakriti. We are all Prakriti. But we are trying to be Purushas, so they're false Purushas. And what happens? Like Harvey Weinstein, like Jeffrey, what was his name? Jeffrey, huh? Epstein, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, all the Steins, right? And they've all been caught. Their karma has caught up to them, and they're ruined because they thought they could get away. Look at also Bin Laden. Bin Laden, who had at least 4 wives, right? Well, he got caught because he wanted to live with his wives in a house, so he did it secretly in Pakistan. That's how they caught him, because the wives had to go to a doctor every once in a while, and they were, and the United States, has all their technical ways of spying on people, and because the wives were going to a doctor, they found out that Bin Laden was living in Pakistan in a nice house with his wives, and they sent their commandos there. They grabbed Bin Laden and took him away, killed him, and threw him into the Indian Ocean. By the way, it's going to contaminate India. He's somewhere in the Indian Ocean right now. So you see, and how did they get the other terrorists? I keep forgetting the demons' names. Owala. Huh? No. Huh? No. It's another one. Awal. I forget his name now. Anyway, he was in Yemen, and he was educated in America, so he spoke really good English, and he was using the internet to make jihadis in America as well as around the world. He was very successful at it. How did they kill him? They killed him with a drone. He wanted to have a blonde, blue-eyed woman. So, because the United States has its way of using technology to, spy on people, when they understood this, they arranged for him to get a blonde, blue-eyed woman from Holland, and they convinced her to be sent to this man in Yemen, and she had some kind of communication, a microscopic communication chip on her body, and they found out exactly where he was, and they sent a drone there and killed him. Right? And I don't know what happened to the lady, but he was definitely killed. Now, both of them got caught because their attachment to sense gratification, you see. And then when they got Bin Laden's computer, you know, he was always talking about how wonderful Islam is because you can marry 4 women and you can have all the sense gratification you want and blah blah blah. So they got caught because of their uncontrolled desires, you see. And not only that, they also got other people like that too, that did not want to separate themselves from the sense gratification. So, what's his first name? No. I mean, it doesn't matter what his name is anymore. He's dead, so he got what he wanted. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
So that was my question, Maharaj. Like, why does Prabhupada use the word Purusha to describe the living entity?
Well, he made it clear in what I read. He says they're false Purushas. They're not the real. The real Purusha is Krishna. Right? Any other questions? Yes, Samarth. Give Samarth the equal opportunity microphone. Wait.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, you said that when the earth, water, fire, air, ether is destroyed, and that is the objects of one of Krishna's energies, and
they are Krishna's inferior spiritual energy. It's
yeah.
spiritual, not the forms that they make, but the energy itself is spiritual.
So then, when they're destroyed, there's still the energy.
What?
When they're destroyed,
yeah,
the energy is still there.
Yes.
So is that?
And the scientists know this too, because they talk about the conservation of energy and matter.
Is this the same case for all of Krishna's energies?
Yeah, everything coming from Krishna is eternal.
Okay.
Everything coming from Krishna, but there are differentiations such as his apara prakriti, inferior spiritual energy, and his para prakriti, which is superior spiritual energy. What's the difference between the two is the apara, or inferior spiritual energy, sometimes disappears, whereas the superior spiritual energy never disappears. But even when it disappears, it's still existing in a potential form. Whereas the forms made by the apara prakriti, or inferior spiritual energy, they disappear completely. They're destroyed. So most people are attached to the temporary forms. That's why they suffer. Just like sometimes, let's say you have a credit card, so you go to the ATM machine, you put it in a machine to take money out, and it gives you a piece of paper that says, you're overdrawn, we're keeping your credit card. Has that ever happened to anyone here? It happened to me once. So that's a shock, right? You thought you had money in the bank, you put your credit card in it, and then the credit card doesn't come out, and no money comes out because you're overdrawn. You see? So in the same way, when we engage in sense gratification, any pious activities we've done will become eventually exhausted, and then suffering begins. And suffering is there all the time, but there is some success people have. That's because of their punya, or the good things they did in a previous life. So whenever you're born with good things and bad things. And when all the good things are exhausted, then the bad things take over. The bad karma takes over. So that's why we have a mixed bag always of good and bad karma. And as long as we have any karma, good or bad, we are stuck in the process, in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. We have to get rid of both the good and bad karma and have what's called akarma. So there's karma, vikarma, akarma. There's karma pious activities that we perform with attachment to the results, that keeps us in the material world, but at least there's some happiness. And then there's the impious activities, vikarma, that gives us suffering. And then there's akarma, there's no positive or negative karma. It's pure devotion to Krishna. So one is neither, therefore there's no reaction that keeps us in the material world when you engage in pure acts of devotion for Krishna. Like the gopis, like great acharyas, and like great devotees, like Narada Muni or Prahlad Maharaj or Yudhisthira Maharaj. They gave up good and bad karma and they just engaged in devotional service. Therefore they became liberated from the cycle of birth and death and go back to the spiritual world where they came from. So as long as we are attached to the result of our work, we're caught up in the cycle of karma. We can't get out. But if we offer the result to Krishna, then we become free of karmic reactions. So therefore, we should always be engaged in yagyas, as sacrifices for the pleasure of Krishna. See? So the number one sacrifice is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we chant the names of Krishna without any material desire in our heart, Krishna is very pleased. And then he will protect you and take care of you in this lifetime and help you come back to Godhead. If we have a material purpose for chanting Hare Krishna, like you say, well, my business is not doing good, and Hari Vilas said, chant Hare Krishna, so now I'm chanting Hare Krishna so my business does better. Well, yeah, maybe your business will do better, but you'll still be in the material world. You're not going to be found free because you have a material desire. See? Hari Bol.
Thank you, Harsh.
Maharaj, trying to understand the difference between verse 8.8 and 14.26. So 8.8 shows the path to reaching Krishna.
Yes.
14.26 to reaching the level of Brahman. But they look similar to me. Like the 14.26, reaching the Brahman. Mamcha
Mamchayo vipicharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatityaita brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
That's an
Now, but you have to understand, and see, the word Brahman has three major meanings. One is, it's the effulgence of Krishna. Two is, it's the entire material creation, or Mahat Tattva. Right? And three is, it is Brahma Jyoti, Paramatma, Bhagavan. All three. So you have to see the context in which the word Brahman is used to understand which one of those he's talking about. All right? So let's take a look at the context. 14th chapter, 26th verse, right?
Yeah.
So the context of that verse is one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Okay, so here, what is the level of Brahman? Na sochati na kankshati. There's no more lamentation and no more hankering. So you've attained prasanatma, genuine peace and happiness, because you have no more complaints or kankshati and no more material desires. You replace the material desires with desires to please God. It's not like the impersonalist Mayavadis that say the solution to all problems is give up all desires. No, it's impossible. You can try, you might succeed for some short period, but as soon as one more desire comes into your mind, you fall down. Right? But you can purify desires. That is possible. So instead of desiring selfishly, you desire to please Krishna. Then you will be liberated, and you will no longer have kankshati or sochati. Samak sarve subhute sumad bhaktim labate puram. You will attain Brahman. No more complaints, no more desires. Simply devotion for the Lord. That's why it says, Mam chayo vibicharina bhakti yogena sevate. So bhakti yogena, what does that mean? That means one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, meaning no vacation, no Disneyland, no Reno or Las Vegas, no Yosemite Park, no cricket, right? Unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So what is that level of Brahman? Na sochati na kankshati. No more lamentation, no more material desires. So that means that you become situated in spirituality, in your relationship with Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was confused because they used Krishna used a full devotional service in that verse, and to reach the Brahman state.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you reach Brahma Jyoti. It's all three of them: Brahma Jyoti, Paramatma realization, and then Bhagavan realization. You don't stop like the impersonalists at just the Brahma Jyoti.
In the next verse, Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham.
Yeah, he says that I am this spiritual effulgence, but he's not referring to that in the previous verse. He's referring to the fact that you rise above the sochati and kankshati, this lamentation and desires. Lamentation for what you've lost and desires for what you don't have. You're above that. Now you're prasanatma, you're perfectly satisfied, and you're remaining neutral in the material world. You're not attached to a result, and you're not disturbed by losing things. You simply continue in devotional service, right? So you're not going to be like a person who loses his 401k and his whole portfolio of stocks. And then he does honor killing by killing his wife and kids and kills himself. That's a person who's bankrupt spiritually. You see, because he's so attached to money, he can't imagine living without, having lost all that money overnight, right? Because the stock market collapsed. So therefore, he does what's called honor killing. But what's honor about killing your own children and wife and killing yourself? See, because he doesn't know anything else than having money and having 401ks and having cars and houses and things like that. He's never, even though born in India, he doesn't have any understanding of spirituality. Therefore, he wants to kill himself and his family. There are a lot of people like that. They call it honor killing, but it's actually dishonor. See? The Muslims do it, Christians do it, Hindus do it, because they don't have any spiritual knowledge. So well, you lost everything. You can just start all over again, right? But no, they can't imagine that because their ego has been hurt. Therefore, they have to kill their wife and kids. What? That's a demoniac thing to do. There's nothing honorable about that.
Maharaj, the 8.8 and then 14.26, they're equal. There's no, we can't.
Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasananya gamina. Paramam purusham divyam yati partana chintayam. Yeah, it's all about he who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. And then the other verse, one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. In other words, you understand the three levels of spiritual consciousness: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Krishna. Haribol. Any other questions?
So Maharaj, I think this 1426, which is what just the verse that we covered, and then 1854, which is the verse that you refer to as explanation. It's actually, it's interesting that in the 1426, the Lord says, one who engages in full devotional service eventually comes to the Brahma Bhuta stage. And then in the 1854, the Lord says exactly the reverse, which is once a person comes to the Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasochati Nakankshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. And then such a person who's in the Brahma Bhuta state gets the full devotion into me. So it seems like you start with the bhakti, you get to the Brahman stage, and then you get to the Brahman stage, you get bhakti.
Anyway, bhakti is the solution.
That's
Let's just stick with that, right? Bhakti is the solution to all problems. Pure bhakti, not mixed bhakti. There's karma mishra bhakti, and there's jnana mishra bhakti, and there's astanga mishra bhakti. This is mixed, right? What we want is pure bhakti. So when it's pure bhakti, then you're liberated. If it's karma mishra, if it's mixed, you're not there yet. You're on the track, but not at the goal. You know. So we don't want to do a khichdi. We want to do, it's either rice or it's dal, but it's not. We don't want to mix it all up. Haribol. Any other questions? All right, then we'll have Guru Puja. Haribol. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I start? Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma
Kevala Bhakati Sadma Manamori Savadana Jahara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatori Aja Krishna Prapti Hoy Jai Ha Hoy De Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Kya Arena Korea Mane Yasha Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttama Gati हे प्रसाद पूरे सर्वशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से गिविकांडे में प्रकाशित हो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जते वेदिकाय जहाँ रचरित हो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अजम जनर बंधु रोकी न जीवाना हा प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पद चाया ए बेकार गुशुप त्रिभुवाना प्रभु पात पिता पवाना जय प्रभु प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी नित्यानामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रसारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्या विशत्यारिणे चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद अद्वैत गरुड़ शिव चरित गौर भक्त वृंदा कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गरुड़ शिव चरित गौर भक्त वृंदा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajigachara Astatara Satara Shishi Shimad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Praham Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dhama Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.